Take your handy tracker and shove it. I don't know how you experienced the start of Patriots free agency on Monday, about noon. But that is how I started my free agency with a text from our next guest. I can't say the people's favorite because that's Doug Kyed, but you're in the running. Mike Giardi, Boston Sports Journal, just glorious texter. We're now at the end of day 2. I have not shoved the tracker. Are you doing okay with that?
I like to keep you on your toes. I want to make sure that, I express myself clearly. Like we're in person, I would enunciate these things to you. I just want you to be prepared at all times. You never know what's going to happen when I text you. Could be something good, could be ripping somebody, could be ripping the team, whatever. It's always in play.
I'd say it's a solid 66 to 33% vent to miscellaneous ratio. That would be 2-1, which, wow, I'm tired when I'm just like jumping 33 times the necessary ratio. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about here today on the podcast. I appreciate you coming on, our most common guest. That for sure is a fact. Patriots through day 2, not running it back, but it's close. And they have a couple new faces, one that was very predictable, another, to a degree. But I have not recorded since the Patriots traded Mac Jones for a 6th-round pick. I blew up my Sunday. We're still ended with the Oscars. Great show, by the way. Did you watch the Oscars? Are you an Oscars guy?
No, definitely not.
Good, because I think folks would be very upset if I continued on anything else other than free agency. We're gonna save Mac for the end, and here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna run out every single move that the Patriots have made as of 8:36 p.m. Tuesday night. Still a lot to come, but here's what they've done. Then we're gonna go down our favorite move, least favorite move, maximum meh move. I'll say you just responded and then you kept scrolling on Twitter. And then most surprising and what comes next. What comes next, I will say, is going to be some sort of resolution to what has become a prolonged Calvin Ridley drama. You just talked about this on TV at NBC Sports Boston. I want to stop here and just say I wrote a column saying, look, it seems like he's using them for leverage. It's the Patriots and the Jaguars right now. He's the best receiver in the market by far. Do you agree with that assessment? And how do you think this ends with Calvin Ridley?
100% best receiver on the market, 100% that it appears that he is just biding his time to sign with the Jags when the league year starts. I think if people have been following this at all, they know Atlanta would give up a would get a second-round pick from the Jaguars if the Jaguars sign him before the start of the league year, and it's a 3rd-round pick if they sign him after 4 o'clock on Wednesday. And it just feels like as this has gone on now that's what we're waiting for. They're just waiting for 4 o'clock to officially say, yes, we're keeping Calvin Ridley. And here's the deal. And, Atlanta, you take that 3rd-round pick.
Right. And the other part of it is, okay, let's keep the Patriots on the hook. So, hey, Jaguars, you really want me?
Mm-hmm.
I'll put $1 million or $2 million as I wait and do you a favor. But this is the way that you scratch my back because I could go to New England. New England wants me. And let's be very clear. That interest, as you reported well before I did, is real. They aggressively pursued him. This is not, as I think people in their frustration tend to believe that this is stuff put out by the team or fluff. And you and I, as you once put to me, do not deal in nonfiction. Like, never forget that when it comes to this podcast, Mike's reporting or mine or Doug Kyde's. But I get why folks would be frustrated. Like, we're not at interest kings level here with the Red Sox. The Patriots have been on Ridley. They are the finalists, as other people have reported. And it just might not get done because, well, Mike Giardi probably would want to give him $27 million a year. I don't think the Patriots will. And honestly, I wouldn't either. But make your pitch for, hey, blank check, Calvin Ridley, just come. I don't care about the price.
Because you desperately need to change the profile of your offense. I believe you said, he would be immediately applying deodorant to the stink that has become this offense over the last 2 years.
Read my column. What a
I
pal.
did. How about that? And just to me, I've talked about this for 2 years now, maybe 3, about they don't have anyone. They haven't had anyone on offense that makes opposing defenses plan for, that they stay up at night and say, we have to, no matter what. I mean, last year you saw it. They had to take, people were doubling Pop Douglas. Is Pop Douglas a number 1? No, but on this team, they identified him at some point during the course of the year. Like, that's the guy they have to go to because he's probably the best of the bunch. So, like, we can take him away. We can do that. They haven't had someone like that. Ridley does that. He's not, look, at best, he's a low-end one. Probably more like a high-end 2, like maybe the best 2 in the league, one of the best 2s in the league. But where you are right now, with the amount of money you have, with the way the cap continues to trend, like, I don't really care. 2 and 50, like, just put put it all guaranteed. Like I think they need to do it. I think they desperately need to do it. And we talk about other options that I know we're going to get into, but like, to me, this is the one that makes the most sense. It's just money. That's all it is. You're not giving up assets. You're just giving up cash.
So much easier to say at the billionaires, and rightfully so, right? Like there's a salary cap that the owners agreed upon in the CBA all the way dating back to the start of the league, which is just intended to prohibit them from spending each other into oblivion, right? This is not baseball. This is not other sports. And so we should be encouraging teams to spend as much as possible. What does it matter? But it's funny coming from us where money very much matters in our kind of business. Setting that aside, I think 90% of people who just heard you say that agree, right? Get it done. We've been itching for 5 years for a game-breaking, difference-making wide receiver. That's him. You're a suitor. Get across the finish line. I don't care what it costs. And I want to bring up a few things because I think it's worth highlighting why this is a bit more complicated than the blank check scenario. Hell, let's say 2 for $60, mostly guaranteed, right? Right now, Tyreek Hill is the highest paid receiver in the league at $30 million annually. You can go by guarantees. You can go average annual value. We're going to go with average annual value. If you went even to 25, that instantly makes Calvin Ridley the 4th highest paid receiver in the league. Now, that's in a snapshot, right? In a couple of years, he will fall back as all the receivers do. But Mike Evans, definitively a better receiver, granted a couple years older, but much more productive, more physically talented, signed for $20.5 million annually. So Ridley would not only be top 5 ahead of most of the league, he'd be ahead of a guy who just re-signed in Tampa Bay that the Patriots also had interest in. The other part about this is Calvin Ridley is not a first-time free agent like most who are in their mid to late 20s. He's 29. So he's an older guy in the back end of his physical prime who he missed a lot of games with the gambling suspension and mental health issues. I'm not going to hold the mental health stuff against him. We all deal with varying levels of that. I'm glad he stepped away. I'm glad he came back. But when you add all of this up in the context of he's not only just never made an all-pro team, but never made a Pro Bowl. He's only had 1,000-yard seasons since he entered the league in 2018. And as you just said, at his best is a 1B, which is why in some free agent lists you find him at like 20 to 25 and the best players available. I can understand why the Patriots go, look, we'll get to 20, maybe even 22. But if we're paying a guy for his age 29, his age 30, and age 31 season in a theoretical 3-4 year deal, we got to have a limit somewhere.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. So when we talk about the numbers, like you can throw out the Tyreek Hill numbers, but like I don't think Jacksonville is extending themselves to that point. So now you're just dealing with, all right, let's pay more than they do. Let's account for the state tax. They don't have the state tax, all that part, throw in a little extra there. So what are we talking about? We're talking more about, I think what you're saying, 20 to 22 over 3 or 4 years. I mean, you can, you structure the contract however you want. Guaranteed money is what we're going to focus on. And just, yeah, I think they should be fine with that. And again, he's not going to be the guy 3 years from now. You're like, oh, I'm so glad that we did that and he's still here. Like, no, you're hoping that in this draft or next year's draft or someone pops free that you're going to find someone better than him. But maybe they're going to be at a different cost point than he is, especially if it's through the draft. And then, okay, then he slides back to that 2, and he's a 70-catch guy as a 2. And we can move him around a little bit. And then all of a sudden, Pop Douglas is a 3 or whatever it is. All of a sudden, you've weaponized. That's the word they use, right? They want to weaponize. All of a sudden, you weaponize your offense for what we assume is going to be a young quarterback who they're going to pick at number 3 and then hope to develop, unlike the guy that they had at 15 a few years ago.
Okay, now zooming out, not backtracking. I want to make it clear. I am pro signing Calvin Ridley. I am pro getting a receiver. I am pro watching offensive football that I look forward to on game days driving down to Foxboro, given the state of the offense the last couple of seasons. He would change that. But when you bring up the draft, I think that's one of the most salient points for what I just discussed, right? The argument against is what are your alternatives, right? Spend theoretically $22 million in Calvin Ridley, age 29, all the things I talk about, or go get someone, probably not in the first round unless they trade back, who could provide you similar value. Rookies, much different projection. But in the trade market, there are some interesting names. And all credit to my colleague, Doug Kite of the Herald, who dug this up today. The Patriots have called on Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and there are some other obvious trade targets on that team because the Chargers are jiggling every single door lock and every single window trying to get out of cap help. They are Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. I don't think they're coming to New England. But The receivers are interesting, not only because Keenan Allen's been to the Pro Bowl 6 times, and he's 32. Both are in the last year of their deal. Williams has a lot of similar, let's call them yellow flags. He's 29, only 2 1,000-yard seasons to his career, missed a bunch of games the last couple of years, all has Calvin Ridley. The most interesting part about them, though, is that they would cost about what Calvin Ridley would. And in this case of a trade where you're probably giving up a 7th, because again, the Chargers are shaking the bars of their jail cell, is that if the Patriots are willing to take on most, if not all of that money, that's probably how much they're willing to go for Calvin Ridley. That's the proof that you need. The fact that they called about guys who are going to cost $20 to $22 million all the way out in Los Angeles, who are comparable players to Calvin Ridley, says they're really willing to pony up. So my question is, would you rather get one of those guys for a year at a similar price? And of course, maybe the 7th round pick, or they just get cut, or extend more for Calvin Ridley because you really have to make him a Godfather offer, it seems like, based on the reporting, to get him out of Jacksonville.
Well, I mean, I think that the logical thing here, because of the way I feel like this Ridley thing is trending and the way you feel it's trending, is to say, yeah, we'll give you a 6th or a 7th and we'll take Mike Williams' contract on and let's do that thing for a year. And you hope that because it's in a contract year, he finds a way to work out a little bit more, the hamstrings stay a little bit healthier, whatever it may be, and he gives you the absolute best he can at the age of 29 and gives you close to a complete season, which has been a problem for him. And actually it's been a little bit of a problem for Keenan Allen as well. Allen, I don't think is going to come free. I mean, I guess maybe if they're literally up against it and they can't move other pieces, then maybe they say, all right, well, we don't want to do this, but we will. But I think he's probably, of the 4 guys, the last guy they want to move. I think Williams is probably the first one. Like, please, somebody take him. And if that's all the cost is, then absolutely you do that. And then to your point, now you're not locked up long-term. You're just paying this one lump chunk for one season. And who knows, maybe he gives you something and you're able to work, a 2 or 3 year extension out during the course of time that pays him less than the high end of the market, but gives him a nice little chunk of change going into his 30s.
I know lump chunk was supposed to be lump sum, but I thought you referred to Mike Williams, 6'4", 230-pound man, as a lump chunk.
Lump chunk.
Sort of like,
I like
this
it.
guy's been sitting on the bench, just a slumped lump and a chunk in there. Granted, I don't think he would say that to his face, or maybe not stink stunk, but hey, you might get the opportunity to when the time comes. I'll also say I've been on the record saying I'm pretty hesitant when it comes to Mike Williams. Again, missed 18 games the last 2 years. Yep. You texted me earlier today, similar in body and playing style to Devontae Parker, who's now gone. He's much better than Devontae Parker, and I wanted to get to that receiver room in a second. But just wrapping up the Calvin Ridley conversation, what do you expect to happen, and what else does this whole saga is strong, right? It's been 36 hours. The team who needs receivers is interested. It just feels so new because Bill has never done this before, but never, ever okay this move. What else hasn't been said about this that we should say now? Again, Tuesday night, before things eventually wrap up, probably at 4:01 tomorrow afternoon.
I think it does tell you a little bit of something. And look, Jacksonville took a chance on him. They traded for him, suspension, the whole thing, dealt with all of that. But so that I'm sure there's a little bit of loyalty there. Like, you guys took a chance on me when it could be had for a song and a dance. And I appreciate that. But I guess I would say you're now in the position, because of what you become over the last 4 years, in particular the last year and change. You're not not that you were ever a destination. I guess you were when you had Brady in his prime and Belichick as the king of kings, but that era is long gone. And now it's money, but you also suck. So now it is. It's the suck tax,
you're
right?
So delicate. Always, yeah.
Well, but it's the suck tax, right? You've got now it's like I know we're going to get into it, but like people talk about like the left tackles, the different positions. It's like, well, why the hell would the guy want to come here? You're 4-13. You don't have a quarterback. You have a brand new coach. Like, there's a lot of turmoil. Like, hey, maybe a year from now, if you show some stability, if you show like what Jonathan Gannon did in Arizona, and all of a sudden you're building this foundation, you say, hey, those guys were frisky. We played them. They were hard to play against. They seem to like playing for that guy. Maybe a year from now you're in that place, but right now you're in the 4-13. You stink. Your quarterback stunk. You blew up the organization. You're doing all different sorts of things. Like, you would have to pay me so much more money to go to Foxboro, Massachusetts, as opposed to even Jacksonville, Florida, which is not the greatest place in the world, but palm trees, beaches, bikinis. Just saying.
Go on. What?
No, I think that's it. I think the audience can just roll with that now.
Duval.
Yes.
We'll end there. It's funny you mentioned suctax because I said this on the pod 3 or 4 weeks ago. Felt pretty good about that. I was like, that's easy. Gets a point across. Thought I had coined the term. And I don't think I was doing TV with our mutual friend, Phil Perry. Maybe I saw him say a clip, and then he definitely raised the idea to Elliot. He didn't say, hey, how's it feel that free agents know they'll have to pay a suck tax, or you'll have to pay a suck tax to them when we were at the combine, but gave voice to that in a way that was more eloquent. It's like, damn, it's kind of caught on. And I'm sure someone else had the idea, but just I'm glad it's at least in the ether because, again, it gets the point across. And that just speaks to the reality of the Patriots where, 5, 10, certainly 15, 20 years ago, players deciding between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New England Patriots, it was a no contest. You're going to Foxboro and you're going to love it. Now it's all the things that you just mentioned. Better weather, Pro Bowl quarterback, no state income tax, a more talented roster, made a more recent playoff run, veteran head coach who's going to serve you ice cream seemingly as often as a pat on the ass. It's been a 180. Okay.
Well, I mean, just look at quickly. Just look at like Carolina. Yeah. Robert Hunt's a fine player. Some of his tape is like, if you're into that stuff, like he's just mauling people and you're like, but like overall, he's fine. He's an above average guard. Carolina Panthers had to pay him $50 million guaranteed. Why? Because they suck. Because nobody wants to go there. So like, you're going to weigh this. We're just going to put so much money on the table that even though it's probably not your first choice and it's probably not your second choice, there's just so much money on the table that you just have to do it. You just can't say, man, I'm going to walk away from how many extra millions of dollars? And I think that's kind of where they are right now.
Look, and that's always been the truth of free agency, right? I just think here in New England, self included, grew up here watching those early 2000s, mid 2010s Patriots teams. It was about the love of the region, loyalty, going to the right team, the fit. You want to win a Super Bowl. No. Players go where they're paid most. Hell, Matt Judon said in 2021, well, the Patriots picked me. They offered me the most. And that's the case across the league. So it's part of the awakening here, I'll say, for the fan base. Some parts are good. Others are just everyone's catching up. And that's part of it. It's a new era, not just for the Patriots, but for the Pats Interference Podcast, brought to you now by Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in America. I'm making player picks, watching the Celtics, points, rebounds, and I get to test my skills like you can on Prize Picks this season because it's the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. And then here's the best part: quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, an enormous selection of players and stat types, which all make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app, plus a review policy, which means you get your money back in case of injury, the only DFS platform to offer an insurance policy. Again, Prize Picks has been a ton of fun with the Celtics. You can also go with the Bruins, any number of different sports, games, players, plays, and options. So right now, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Okay, let's catch everyone up on all of the action here today. These are all of the moves the Patriots have made. There's not a whole lot in terms of new names, certainly not unexpected names, but here are all the transactions. If I miss one, I'm sorry. You already know about it, though, if I missed one, so don't get that mad at me and make the first reply when I tweet this out later. Signed. Players from the outside brought in. Quarterback, Jacoby Brissett. Running back, Antonio Gibson, their first outside signing. And linebacker, this is going to bring a smile to your face. I know this. Sione Takitaki. So you have a linebacker from the Browns, ties to Elliott Wolf. Antonio Gibson, who had by far his best game of the year last year with the Commanders, 6'2", 220 running back, former receiver in college. Had something like 48 catches last year for the Commanders. Big fumbling problem, but a talented pass catching back. And Jacoby Brissett, everybody knows. The biggest news and biggest splash was Big Mike. 3 years, $57 million, represented himself. This was badass OG kind of behavior. Give me all your market research. Give me all your stats. Agents tell me exactly what's going to happen and how much I should ask for. Thank you very much. I'll go do this on my own. Hunter Henry, this is old news. Kendrick Bourne came back, reported that's a 3-year, $19.5 million contract for him, base value, not the $33 million that Adam Schefter had 20 seconds ahead of me. I'm not bitter. Don't worry about it. Josh Uche back in a 1-year, $3 million deal worth up to $8 million. That was a shock. We'll get to him. Jalen Reagor, Christian Ellis, Tyrone Wheatley Jr., and Nathan Rourke also back. Most of them exclusive rights free agents, meaning, hey, tag, you're not going anywhere. We're going to pay you the minimum. Released wide receiver Devontae Parker, now an Eagle. Tight end Mike Gesicki off to Cincinnati. Chris Board hanging at home for all I know. Last two, Mac Wilson signed with Cardinals, 3 years, $15 million. Mazel tov to him, coming off a great end of last season. And Jalen Mills is going to play for the New York Giants. So that took like a minute and a half, I'm sure, me listing off all those names. Your 30-second summary, if someone came up to you and said, hey, what the Patriots been up to? Go.
They decided that the best thing that you could do after a 4-13 season was to just bring everybody back. Let's put all the core back on the table because it worked so well last year and even the year before when your locker room was started to go south, and then it really went south last year. I mean, when you can do that, when you can bring back the core of a 4-13 team, you absolutely, positively have to do it. I think it's in the bylaws. It's probably in the CBA.
Come on, Mike, though. Bring me up. I see Mike Giardi in the street. I want good news. I want insider info. Give me 10 more seconds, but bring us up a little bit.
Meh. It was meh. That's what it was. It's meh.
Walking my dog past you. I'm leaving you, and I'm just going to go on Twitter, a known miserable place for my joy and my information.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just, again, we don't deal in nonfiction here. I'm trying to shoot you straight. And that's what it's left me feeling like after 36 hours.
Okay, fair enough. Here's where I want to start. Your favorite move. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm gonna drag this out of you. Something you really liked that the Patriots did. I gave you a lot of names. Again, most are familiar. Not a lot of this was unexpected. My wish list is just a swing and a miss all the way down my last episode with Aaron Schatz. I know you do not approve of the Snead stakes. L'Jarius Sneed, come on down, please. But your favorite move.
I'm going to give it. I'm going to split my vote. Can I do that? Am I allowed?
Sure.
Damn it, I'm doing it anyways. Signing Nwenu. Look, to me, of all the internal free agents, it's the one guy you had to have back. If you told me everybody else is walking and you can only bring one guy back and that was the guy, then I'd be happy. He's a good guard. He's a solid right tackle. Notice I didn't say great, but that's what he is. But that's what you need. Like you were in such flux, and he stabilized things for you. He did something last year that he probably didn't want to do. I mean, he didn't want to do it. He'd rather stay at right guard, but he played right tackle for you because right tackle was a revolving door. And he didn't always, he got his ass whooped by Khalil Mack, for instance, but like he did it for the team. Those are the kind of guys you reward. He's only 26, so I think you can still count on him being a solid player. 3-year deal is nothing. Look, this is something that they should have done last offseason or should have done during the season. I know there were some conversations that went nowhere, and whether that's because Bill didn't want to spend the money or perhaps whatever the reason was, it didn't happen until now. But that's he had to do it. They did it. Good on them. He was needed. My other half is Kobe Brissett. To me, all along, he was the guy to play quarterback of this football team as the bridge. He's the ultimate bridge guy. I think just go back. First of all, I think he's better.
Overwhelmed, which very rarely happens, but sometimes does, on the set of Boston Sports Tonight. When I said Russell Wilson stinks, you should not want him here, and I explained, and then I was volleyed back. I think it was from Felger.
I believe
who's better, Russell Wilson or Jacoby Brissett? And I'm thinking, like, why are we deciding between the expired cookies versus the expired crackers? Like, they're bad. I don't want either of them. I want to throw them in the trash. I want to move on. But one's probably a little bit more nutritious. One's a little bit better for my locker room. One I know is a little bit more reliable. Maybe if I reheat it, I can get the best out of it. Like, I didn't commit to Russell Wilson, who's probably the answer. But what would your answer be?
Jacoby Brissett. I want nothing to do.
Right.
I want nothing to do with Russell Wilson. Like, first of all,
yes.
You can always do what do you want with stats. Like we've seen it a million times. And so when I have made my claim, the moment he got released, like I didn't want anything to do with him, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And I said to them, do you watch? And I'm not trying to be like some all 22 nerd. I'm just saying, like, watch. He is risk averse. Didn't want to put the ball in tight windows at all. except when he would occasionally throw, like the haymaker to Cortland Sutton in the back of the end zone, like a prayer that Sutton was able to answer for him a bunch of times last year. You've never heard anybody. Like, think about this. You've never really heard anybody defend him. Who goes to bat for Russell Wilson? What teammates? I mean, we know the Seattle people hated him.
Russell Wilson goes to bat to Russell Wilson.
Right. Like he never, as has been talked about, my guy Ryan Russillo talks about all the time, like, you never get an honest answer out of the guy. So we just dealt with Mac, and then you're going to bring Russell Wilson into the thing? Like, just get out of there with that. Jacoby Brissett's a real dude. He does have some strengths as a quarterback, but I think the most important thing is you're drafting a guy at 3. At least that's how I feel. I'm sure, yes. I think that's what they want to do. They have to get comfortable with whoever it is. But like, I think that's their hope and dream is to draft a guy at 3, that they fall in love with someone. Jacoby Brissett will put his arm around that dude, and he will make sure that quarterback room, which was a toxic pit of disgustingness for the last 2 years, Mac Jones and Joe Judge not getting along, Bailey Zappi into the mix, the whole change last year, like, just a bad place. You can't have that again with a first-round quarterback, especially a first-round quarterback that you might be picking at 3. Like, you just can't do it. And Jacoby Brissett is not that guy. Go read about what he said about Sam Howell when Sam Howell was going through his troubles late last year, when Jacoby actually unseated him. They finally put Howell to the bench, and then Jacoby got hurt. And so Howell had to start the last game. And then how Howell talks about him, vice versa, like, just that relationship is exactly what you want from a veteran quarterback who, oh, by the way, has started 48 games. He's played a lot of football, seen a lot of things.
Folks who are upset about the Jacoby Brissett signing, I don't think fully understand what he's here to do. First of all, it's a 1-year contract. So if it goes badly, he's back on the market and you don't have to deal with him again.
Yep.
What he's here is exactly what you said, is to be a mentor. And if Drake May or Jaden Daniels is not ready coming out of training camp, he's there to take the hits. He's there to be a buffer. He's there to lead a locker room, which is going to go through tough times because the state of the roster, what it's been, frankly, just the talent level. But he's the guy. Even I remember Matt Judon shouting him out in 2022. They're going into Cleveland. They know they're going to get a pick or 2 or a few sacks because he's just a big lumbering dude. And he's like, look, that guy I know, and Judon does not mince words, comes to work every single day and has respect around the league. It doesn't matter the situation he's in, coaching, the players around him. He's a man. He's a quarterback. That guy is now in your locker room. So, cosign, we all saw this coming to a degree. I'm glad he's here. He's not my favorite move, but let's stay with Onwenu because that is my favorite move and the much more impactful one. I mentioned 3 years, $57 million. A year ago, not even 4 or 5 years ago, just one. If you paid a guard $19 million a year, you had to have been laughed out of the league right now. And I know Mike Onwenu might tackle. He is, I think, just outside the top 5. Like, there are 4 offensive guards getting paid $20 or more million. This market exploded. I tweeted it 5 times during the day on Monday. Mike Onwenu sitting pretty. Mike Onwenu sitting pretty. Landon Dickerson, 21. Jonah Jackson gets 17. Kevin Dotson gets 16 from the Rams. Okay? So the contract, even if he goes back to guard, is still bad if you consider one of the better ones in the league, and I do. To the point about him playing tackle, he was 24th per Pro Football Focus grades, insert giant grain of salt here, last year at tackle, where he switched mid-season. I'm very curious how he looks with a full training camp. And granted, he was recovering from an ankle injury last year. We hardly saw him in the summer. A full preseason, a full regular season at one position, because I think he'll be much better than 24th and is going to make a big return on that investment. I'm with you. He's a guy that had to sign. They did. And especially because Elliott told the world at the combine, he's a core player. And minutes later, hey, what's your roster building philosophy? Draft and develop, and then extend your core players. If you did not sign him, and I know I can tell you they were not really in on Jonah Williams, you are behind on what you want to do, what you're about, and optics take a backseat to the football part of it, but losing Mike Onwenu does not help you on either front, and more importantly, the football one.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it does send a great message. And I don't need like 9 million messages, which just seems like kind of what they've been doing here. But for this one, absolutely. And like, I think what we're seeing around the league, and I think it's part of why the guard market has blown up, is that everybody's having a hard time finding 5 good offensive linemen to play together. And I think now it's not as much about, I mean, you still have to have positions, obviously, but I think now it's just like, give me the 5 best guys I got, and I'll figure out a way to make it work. Like playing Vidarian Lowe at right tackle. I mean, look, their line was a mess and there were injuries and whatnot, but like he didn't belong on the field. And I'm not blaming him. Like that was the situation. They had to throw him out there, and he got pantsed quite a bit and got his quarterback destroyed and screwed up the running game and all those sorts of things. But like, he wasn't one of their best 5, or maybe he was at one point, which again speaks to the roster building. But like, I think that's what we're seeing more and more now, especially in the last 2 years, where it's almost like right tackle, left guard, right guard, center. Like the Rams spent $1 million on 2 guards, right? And they're taking one of their guards and they're moving to center. They have 1,000 pounds of beef now in the middle of their line, but they were like, that guy's one of the better players. We bring him in. He's one of our best 5. We bring this guy in. He's one of our best 5. Avila's one of our best 5. We're just going to move him to center and we'll figure it out. And I think that's kind of the approach that you have to have now, because I think people are really having a hard time developing offensive linemen.
All right, your least favorite move.
What did I tell you? I had an answer for this. Oh, you know what? Look, I'm not Duggar. I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done it. And in some ways, and I think I tweeted it as all these guys' safety started to get released. It's like,
time out. I'm so glad you brought him up, because I just realized that he was the name I was missing on this list, and that's why I made that proclamation. Don't at me about this. I didn't make a tags category, and this happened so long ago, where I'm losing track, and this is bad. This is a bad sign for me in free agency end of day 2. His camp was not thrilled about it. I said that last episode. Okay, they had not had a dialogue about the franchise tag really leading up to when this happened. So not only does his market get curbed, but he's at a level that I think he expected to have more. However, in recent days, that has aged very, very well for him. And now you're about to explain, not very poorly, but not the way I think the Patriots believed it was going to age on their side.
Because so many guys got released, the market has depressed for safeties, and there are a lot of good players that are still sitting out there without jobs that are comparable players, or I would say in some cases better players. In some cases, I might even say significantly better players. And again, I'm not hating on him. I think he's a fine player. I think he's a solid player, but he's 28. He is what he is. He doesn't cover very well. He's a beast in the box. Like, that's what he is. Do I pay almost $14 million for that guy? I wouldn't. I would have, we go back to the Ridley conversation. I would have not transition tagged him, or I would have pulled that thing off the table, and I would have taken half that money and gone get Quandre Diggs for 1 year to play safety for me. And I'd taken the other $6.5 million I saved, and I'd put it in front of Calvin Ridley and say, here, Calvin, remember I said we weren't going to go any higher? Well, how about this? How about a little bit more? Sprinkle a little bit more. That to me, again, it's not like it's a terrible move, because he's a fine player, but I would not have extended myself for him. I just would not have done it.
Yeah, 1 year, $13.8 million. He has not signed the tag, to my knowledge, and there's still a little bit more time here. But you mentioned all the safeties that hit the market afterward. I mean, Justin Simmons is a really interesting one to me, and I would not rule out the Patriots adding, a lot of the big-time defensive players are off the market. And Doug and I reported they were big game hunting. And they were. Christian Wilkins, we wrote about on Monday. L'Jarius Sneed, checked in multiple times. And the Lions, who are considered the front runner for Sneed, have checked out. Does that mean I think it's going to happen? Not necessarily, but they're in that arena for guys who can make a big impact right away. Maybe one of those safeties joins the party, but we'll see. It's funny because I did not expect Josh Uche to come back. He profiled to me as a player that was going to have one bidder who blows him away, and everyone's like, $12 million for Josh Uche,
right?
And it's not all guaranteed, but you're just saying that's a smart, player the Patriots avoided who got overpaid. No, sir. This is a 1 year, $3 million deal. So I'm excusing myself from the least favorite, because I really don't have one deal for Josh Uche, which you just have to take him back. Like, he's not going to be an every down player. He's undersized on the edge. He's going to run around the quarterback sometimes, but his per snap efficiency at a premium position with an incredibly valuable skill set on third down, where he's probably going to play, and I think they're going to say, hey, Keon White, you're going to do all of Josh Uche's dirty work, and then everyone's going to celebrate Josh Uche, and you're just going to have to come back next drive and snarl and just have to deal with it on first and second down, is absolutely worth a $3 million flyer that has a max of $8 million. And I just want to talk about him here because it's a surprise, which is the next question. I'm going to ask you your most surprising signing, and one that happened very recently. So I think this is still settling in for people who, like me, were like, he's probably gone.
Hunter Henry, I think, surprised me a little bit. And it's not as if they didn't have a need. Obviously, they didn't have any tight end signed before they signed him. I think they overpaid a little bit. But again, what are we talking about? Like, to me, he was probably a 2-year, $12 million guy on the market. They gave him, what, $16 million guaranteed here, it looks like, over the course of the contract, which is essentially a 2-year deal. Could they have done better there? Maybe. I might have sniffed around Noah Fant, just profile better athlete, maybe coming into his own. Again, you're sort of paying for a potential future promise versus what he's done already. I like Colby Parkinson, who signed with the Rams for $15 million, or I think over 3 years. Again, not like there's nothing earth-shattering at the position. I think they probably looked at it, and they're paying a tax on. We know he's a good guy. We know he leads. You know, if David Andrews was always first after the games, was Bill Belichick was doing whatever he was doing last year after games, Hunter Henry was usually second, and again, just like David, having to answer questions that were better suited for the coach, but the coach didn't want to make himself available at the beginning.
You're not bitter about that, Mike Giardi.
I just think it was I brought it up a million times. I think it was a fraudulent behavior from him and bad thing to do. Like put your players in a rotten situation. Have an answer.
Can I ask you a question though?
That you should be answering.
You use the term, and I'm going to let you finish, but I just sniff around. You know, like there are these fake drinking games that we play on Twitter, right? When Schefter misspells a name, he cites the agent, he says something that no one understands. Take a sip. This is more Danny Heifetz, new friend of the Ringer, driving most of that. But I'm curious, how many different ways do we have for like show moderate interest in? Because sniff around is absolutely the strangest of all of them. There are no humans that go and like sniff around, even with food. If you're sniffing that close to something, you have to eat it. I'm sorry, or throw it out, because no one else is going to want to sniff around something. Like we all suddenly become dogs when you're working in a front office and it's free agency time. I have check in on, call about. You know, I guess you can get your eyes at, but no one really does. Maybe that should be the new one. Am I missing one?
I'm sure there's. I'll probably, wake up in the middle of the night and be like, "Oh, I should have said that." Yeah, that I'd like sniffing around because it is kind of awkward.
And an agent said that to me today, and I was like, "Okay, what does that really mean?" Like the Patriots actually sniffing around your guy. He's a backup edge defender for folks who want to know. That's the most I can say because this is how these things go back and forth. But I was like, okay, what does he smell like? Is he an nice guy? Is he like, what is anyway, this is nonsense. Back to Hunter Henry. Like
I was gonna say, he smells like ass. Is that what
okay.
Am I allowed
to put us back on the rails and
what?
You just
well, I mean, that's what dogs do. They smell each other's,
Oh,
like...
I see what you're saying. Yeah, going back to the dog part.
Yeah.
All right, let's focus. Hunter Henry.
Yeah. I think I would have let him go to market, and I would have talked to some other people and press that a little bit. He's a fine player, but like long gone are the days where we said he's a top 10 tight end, which is when they signed him like, oh, he's a top 10 tight end. And there was periods in time there where you're like, oh, he's pretty good. I think now, what is he? 15th best tight end, 17th best tight end. So somewhere, whatever. And it's
average player.
Yeah,
I talked about him last episode. I think it was a smart move, and this is a peak. Hey, you have the cap space, you have the cash. Go get him. Who's going to have this residual value, locker room leadership, third down option, red zone option for your quarterback, who really has seen the worst of it and still wants to stick around. The captain, like that, his numbers don't reflect how good he is. But I'm with you. Like I think he's somewhere in that range.
Yeah, but I think he stuck around because he realized you were going to offer him more money than anyone else.
Yes.
And I've been here for 3 years. I don't hate it. It's not like a terrible place. Like my wife is okay here. Yeah, like we're okay. It's like we can do this for a couple more years. It's not that big a deal.
So my most surprising, would have been Josh Uche, but we just covered him. And I think, again, 1 year, $3 million. I saw the original tweet from your old colleague and friend, Mike Garafolo, like, oh, he had a lot more on the table, and he said no. Like, okay, this is also part of the game. We say things like sniff around. You say things that agents also want you to say. Some folks do, at least. And I was like, no. Well, the numbers come out. It seems to absolutely be the case. You just have to do it. Take that deal every single time. Devontae Parker getting cut initially, leaving behind a 6.8 or somewhere around there. Dead cap hit. No cap relief. Just he's gone and leaving a $6.8 million crap on the floor that they're just going to have to sit there for the last year. Was surprising to me. Not because I think Devontae Parker, when I knew they were trying to out, and you reported this again well before I did, that was unwanted by this new regime who, folks have since described to me, and this feels like piling on, right? But I want to relay information to the folks who might want to know. This guy wasn't as bad as 350 yards or whatever he had last year. Described as kind of bad energy. And I know certain players last year, when they wanted to confront a dysfunctional, disjointed coaching staff, would say, let's sick DP on him. Push back to whomever it might have been on the offensive staff, like as a pit bull. And that's fine when it matters, but not as a guy who's just generally a little grumpy. And you can be grumpy if you're putting up 8 touchdowns and 800 yards. It wasn't the case here. Paying him instead of DeAndre Hopkins goes down with one of Bill's worst moves towards the end. We've all seen it. But how willing they were to take that dead cap hit, which is now basically cut in half because the Eagles signed him and the Patriots are only stuck with half the money, was a surprise to me.
A pleasant surprise. Like, look, I didn't like the deal when they made it at the time. I said, look, if a team in the division is willing to trade allegedly one of their better receivers, better players to you in the division, red flag. And people in New England should know that because they took Bledsoe and they traded him to the Bills because Belichick looked at Bledsoe and says, he's never beating me. I will get in that guy's kitchen. And I think he beat him one time and then that was it. Like, he owned him. And I think, to me, I never loved the player's energy to begin with. He's one of those guys that his numbers got inflated in a couple of years. And then if you go back and look at the game log, it's like, well, he had 10 catches that game. Well, he had 8 catches that game. He finished the year with 65 catches. Well, in 2 games, he had a quarter of his production. Even this year, like he had his first game back, second game of the year, right? He catches 8 passes, bunch of little screens, like nothing spectacular. And then you look at his overall numbers and you're like, oh my God, like what was he doing out there? Like he literally couldn't even run into a football half the time. Like you just, that size, that sort of ability, yeah. And if you look at this, if they strike out on what they're trying to do, if they don't spend a ton of money, one of the things I think they should do is I think they should take Juju's contract and do the exact same thing. And I know the argument is, it's like, what is it? 10 million dead cap, 11 million, whatever it is.
I'll pull it up here for you. Keep going.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. And you would say, like, the argument is, hey, look, let's just bring him back. And who knows? Maybe the knee is better. Maybe he's in a better headspace and we get something more out of him than we did last year. I would say to you that I said at the time they shouldn't have signed him because I think a lot of people knew about the knee and they decided to overlook it, probably because of spite with Jacoby Myers. However, they came to that decision. And then you run through the year that he had. And I would rather him not take snaps away from anybody. I'd rather, honest to goodness, I would rather see, and I'm not a fan, I'd rather see Jalen Reagor out there and take those 10 snaps than Juju. Like that's where I'm at with Juju. And I think Juju was a very good player. And I just think his body is caught up to him big time. I think Jacoby Myers even said it at the Super Bowl, right? Like, what happened to Juju? I think his body just caught up to him. I think that's what happened.
It did. I reported on that. You reported on that. And to answer the question, which I've definitely said in a prior episode, so hopefully people already know this, $12.6 million if they cut him outright. Dead cap. All done. No cap relief. Just a big dead cap hit. Not as big as $85 million, which was the Russell Wilson dead cap hit. Denver same.
Some change.
Yeah. And again, that doesn't matter as much if you're willing to create more cap room, something the Patriots historically have been reluctant to do with certain conversions or different maneuvers. But that's the number, 12.6, double what they were going to do for Devontae Parker. I don't think Juju has been doubly bad as Devontae. They could do a post-June 1, cut when they'd actually have to release him after June 1st, but that only brings it down about $3 million. So to me, that says like, okay, he's overpaid. He's not going to be very good. He's at least a warm body. Maybe we'll give him another offseason, even if you're managing the knee constantly, because the explosion's gone. It's bad, but it's interesting. Reagor back on a 1-year minimum deal. A bit more guarantees than I would have thought, like somewhere in the $400,000, $500,000 range, whatever. Like the tools are there. I don't think anyone's extracting them anytime soon. Looking at other players, like I mentioned, Nathan Rourke has already been done. They announced Tyrone Wheatley Jr. today. Christian Ellis is a special teams linebacker. Aside from Kendrick Bourne, I did a lot of reporting around this. This was done late Sunday night. he was about to hit the market. I think his camp got a sense that that market wasn't going to be there as teams changed plans last minute. Patriots nailed it. This was a $6 to $7 million a year player. There's only $8 million guaranteed in the whole contract, but with incentives, he can go up to $33 million. This is a very good piece of work, as was Josh Uche, by Elliott Wolf. Now, again, this offseason shouldn't be about lower value signings, but what did you make of Bourne there as we wrap up with the receivers?
I mean, I think it's for what they paid, it's sort of like the Uche thing. Like, I would have let him hit the market. But I understand the argument. Some people, where it's like, hey, look, he wants to be here. He's a good culture guy. He's a good energy guy. Obviously he learned from his second year in New England, which went sideways, and really bounced back last year. Mentally, I think he was a stronger player. So there's no harm in it, but it's the same thing. I come down to like, well, if you tell me you're going to lose Ridley for $4 or $5 million, where do I find those $4 or $5 million? Maybe that's where I find the $4 or $5 million. Like, I would have attacked it a different way. As I mentioned, the Duggar thing, I think immediately you find yourself some more money there. But I wonder, I know he's talking about, I'm going to be ready for game one. I'm going to be, he's the doctor saying I'm going to be ready to go for training camp. I just look at, and I did for whatever reason, it pops out to me is Breece Hall. Breece Hall last year, 2 years ago rather, had an ACL injury in October, just as Bourne did. Bourne was at the end of October. I believe Hall's was like week 6 in October. If you look at Breece Hall, and I watched a lot of them that year before the injury, and then last year, Breece Hall wasn't Breece Hall again until like mid-November. So a year and a month. And I think that's kind of what you're looking at here with Bourne, because I actually believe, and I don't know how you feel, I think it's actually harder for guys with the ACL who play receiver than it is for running back. Like, I just think you're constantly twitching. You can be a one cut and go guy and just drop the shoulder. Like, you can do that. When you're a receiver, there's a lot of different movements that have to go into getting open, especially if you're not like a 4-2, burner or whatever. So I think it's going to be a challenge for him to be the kind of player that people are now remembering him as from what they saw in the first 7 games of last season.
Yeah, look, I think the injury was the biggest factor in his free agency. Not that he was going to get $12 million a year, but this is a player who understands where he is in his career at his age, what he wanted. And he didn't want to be back in New England, but it was going to take the most money. In the end, this is what his camp believed it was going to get based on, their market research. That's what happened. As far as the injury, I know he's ahead of schedule. I think he's about to, ramp up this week and maybe next. We might have more on that in the next episode. We'll see. But it was a good move. I think it was a perfect lesson. People, even on the radio, freaking out about overpay. Oh my God. I had the numbers right away. Trust the people who are not saying up to or maximum value. There's value in that. He might make $9 million next year with just an 800-yard season. But anyway, moving on.
I might have told somebody close to him. I thought between 2 and 12.5 and 2 and 15 was like sort of my post-injury projection. I think kind of like landed the plane a little bit.
Yeah, the haggling, as I understand it, was a lot of the incentives versus, the hard guaranteed money and how much of that is guaranteed specific to injury and all this stuff that like just gets bogged down in the weeds. Bottom line, he's back. He's additive to the locker room. That room needed a total revamp, as you and I know. And he's working out now with 2 receivers, Demario Douglas and Tyquan Thornton, who looks a lot bigger. I don't know if you saw the video, which is just among the small things that bounce around in your brain as an NFL beat writer that really has no impact and you cannot explain to anyone else outside this arena because you're like, hey, how was your day? Well, Tyquan Thornton looks pretty good. It's March. I just saw like 5 seconds of video, but this is important to me now because this is my job. Anyway, Mack Wilson, he is off to Arizona. This move was surprising to me for a little bit. 3 years, $12.5 billion, maximum value of 15. Got this confirmed. A guy the Patriots thought they were going to bring back. And obviously he's gone. And you know what? Again, cheers to that guy for putting it together late last season, proving he could play on the edge in passing downs. But he's gone. And in comes perhaps your new favorite player, Sione Takitaki, who is a certified plus player in pass coverage. Next Gen Stats had him number 1 rated in the success rate pass coverage stat, which I know would get a if I was doing television right now, and you're rolling your eyes. But like number 1 has to get your attention. And so for the Patriots, who we've all been bemoaning, he was at 72% or something according to Next Gen Stats. Patriots linebackers have not been close to 50. So this is an improvement. He comes at about half the cost of Mack Wilson. Elliot Wolf was a part of the front office that drafted him, loves him. I retweeted the video sometime Monday, everything at Hayes. I'm going to stop talking. What do you make of Sione Takitaki in, Mack Wilson out?
Yeah, a better player than I think people think, when they talk about him, or I don't know that people maybe outside of Cleveland talked about him at all. I think he's a better player. I think if you watch the tape, you see it. And he is someone who showed some versatility as well. I half wonder about the Mack Wilson thing, thinking as you had reported that they were close. And I know that he was sort of like he wanted to be back. He found some success. He liked playing for Mayo. I half wonder if Takitaki was still coming here and that Wilson was going to be the Uche replacement. In other words, he showed some success as an edge guy last year, but yet has more versatility than Uche. He can be out there for 3 downs, which you can't do with Uche at all. I mean, not that you want to make a living with Mack Wilson out there for all 3 downs, but he could do it in a pinch. Whereas Uche, that's not something that they want to do at all. He's, as you mentioned earlier, undersized. And I kind of wonder if that was the plan all along, was like, no, we're going to sign Mack. Mack is going to be more of that role, because we sort of uncovered that from him last year in the second half of the season. Again, not as explosive as Uche is, but there's a little bit more position versatility. And they were also going to add Takitaki to sort of strengthen that core. They have struggled mightily. I think maybe I want to say for like 10 years, they've been trying to find a linebacker that it might even go back beyond that. But I swear we have these conversations every they don't have a linebacker that can even stay in the ballpark with a running back, or it gets exposed by tight ends like that. I know Tavai had a couple moments last year in coverage, but again, that's not where he makes his living. That's not what you want him to do consistently. So I like the signing. It's again, you're not really paying much money there for someone who could end up being a high percentage snap guy for you over the course of a season.
Yes, and he is not the same size as Juwan Bentley or Jelani Tavai. I think he's big enough in a way that you still have size questions about someone, say, Marte Mapu, who I was wondering when Mack Wilson left, did they just envision him as a full-time second-level player playing at linebacker? Because as we all know, the remedy for them when it came to our linebackers stink in coverage was not to find linebackers who are good in coverage, as Elliot Wolf has now done. It was just, we'll throw a safety up there. Yeah, Kyle Duggar, why don't you move on down? Patrick Chung, please go hang out. Take care of those responsibilities.
Poor Adrian Phillips got the crap kicked out of him.
Destroy your shoulders, your arms, everything about it. But we need you to hang up there. And they did. And it was a good plan, and it worked. I remember writing about that as they turned around the start of 2018 season, my first year in the beat, being like, oh, that was a quick fix. But you bring up Josh Uche. We have a new report, Tom Pelissero, saying Josh Uche had several offers, including one worth $15 million over 2 years. So that's $7.5 million per year. He took, again, 3 worth up to 8. That 2-year, $15 million deal, according to Tom Pelissero, NFL Network, had $11 million fully guaranteed. But instead, he opted to return to New England. A rare time a player makes the final call and doesn't chase the money, as he put. And that's the case. I don't know. I feel like starting the podcast saying, hey, players take the money. They don't come back for the discount. They're never coming back for the discount. Right. It certainly happened in that case. Again, I don't think Bourne is entirely in that group, maybe as a foot in that group, but not both. And that's a wow for me. I'm very much looking forward to talking to Josh Uche. Generally, super thoughtful guy, but especially now knowing if those numbers are real, and Tom's word is about as good as gold, why? What were you thinking? It's just a huge drop off.
As an old guy, would it be wrong of me to go up to him and just a slight tap upside the head?
Yes.
What the hell were you thinking? $11 million?
Not generally a good idea when he is, I don't know how many more pounds. You've been working out, Mike, and I haven't said that to you yet. We can all tell he is still so much bigger, faster than you. He's just a nice guy, though. So I don't know. Maybe this is your
I don't know. There's every once in a while there's a little edge with him. I wouldn't want to, but seriously, that is, I don't believe that Tom is making that up.
No,
that's a lot of money to leave on the table, because he has a bad year this year. That's not going to be out there next year. He's playing 10 snaps a game and finishes with 2.5 sacks, and his pressure rate declines as it did last year. It still was a good rate last year, but let's just say it goes down. What's going to be out there next year? He could be 1 foot out the door in terms of even the league. So good on him, I guess.
I don't think it'll come to that. He's got the second round pedigree to him, right? Like the guys who were drafted higher get to stick around, get more wiggle room, and he has an 11.5 sack season to his name, so it's there. I thought he would just get pulled by a 4-down team that said, "Hey, you can do the same stuff there, but just really pin your ears back and do what you do best." He wants to stay. I'm sure Mayo had a big hand in that, but I'll leave it there because I don't know for sure. Tom seems to, and we'll ask Josh when we see him next. All right. Again, Chris Board released, not surprising, disappointed as a special teamer last year. Jalen Mills is moving on. He wanted to start. It's a 1-year deal with the Giants. I don't have much to add on Jalen Mills. The first player the Patriots signed from the outside, though, running back Antonio Gibson. We talked a little bit about him. The fumbling problem is real. He had 4 last year. Not all were of the, oh my God, how could you? It was just wrong place, wrong time. He had 6 2 years before that, and his only 1,000-yard season as a rusher. Again, he's a talented pass catcher, former receiver in college. The thing I like best about him is actually 2 things. Last year in a down season when he lost playing time in what was a pass-happy Washington offense, he finished 4th in average yards gained after contact. Like, you're going to hit me, and I'm going to keep going because that's how big and strong and physical I am. Number 2 was he finished in the top 10, I want to say somewhere 4 to 6, by Pro Football Focus grades. Again, grain of salt right here. We're all taking it. We're all looking at it. And pass blocking skills. So this is a guy, and that's a minimum. I think I put 50 snaps. You can always toggle with the minimum snaps played. 50 seemed fair to me. So that's what I went with. So he's fit as a 3rd down back because of the pass protection. He's going to fight for an extra yard, but he's got soft hands because he was right there with Ramondre Stevenson in terms of targets per game and in pass protection. I like it a lot.
Yeah, so when I did my free agent previews by position, he was number 2 on my running back list behind Devin Singletary, who ended up getting, a decent chunk of change to be the guy that fills Saquon Barkley's shoes in New York. And I knew they weren't going to go to that level. He brings an element that I don't want to say neglected because, look, Ramondre caught a ton of passes 2 years ago, but they kind of ran him into the ground. And then last year, Ezekiel Elliott became the de facto 3rd down back and did a fine job with it. I think he led him in catches, right? 52, 53 catches last year. Mm-hmm. I think Gibson gives you more as a receiver in that regard. And obviously he adds a little bit more juice. Zeke had pretty good spring last year, but there's a lot of tread on those tires. And I think you saw it at various times, especially when they had to lean on him more at the end of the year with Ramondre out. Like, he just doesn't, there's that not explosion. This kid has some explosion. So it's not something that's going to move the needle too much, but to get a reliable 3rd down back, I think it was 58 targets last year, 49 catches. Like, he's just a solid, like, that's a nice little piece. There's not a lot of money on the table. I think it's a plus. It's a plus for whoever's playing quarterback next year and for that offense.
It is. And running back market was strange this year. I mean, this is getting more into the weeds. But I think the value they got him at was $11.25 million, and he's really guaranteed year 1. Year 2 could be, we'll see. I think it was fair value for what he's going to be. He's, insurance in case Stevenson misses a couple of games. You can count on him there. The fumbling is really the only issue, right? Like, that's it. You don't question him as a pass catcher. Talked about pass protection, him between the tackles, willing, able, and that's it. Now, as I texted a former Patriots player asking, like, hey, what do you think of him? You played against him. Word I got back was, versatile guy, not a game changer. I'm like, okay, I thought Belichick wasn't in charge anymore. But he's a good acquisition. It was a fair price. This is a good deal. And what's really been a lot of good deals. The only thing we haven't gotten to yet is maximum meh move, where you kept scrolling, which, granted, we didn't do because we're reporting, confirming all this different stuff. Mike Gesicki, 1 year, up to $3.25 million for Cincinnati. First of all, wish all the best to Mike. Lovely guy. Great to talk to in the locker room. I knew him dating back to his Penn State days. An asset for the Patriots, just not a good fit. But he will fit in Cincinnati, where Joe Burrow is going to throw, I think, an NFL record number of jump balls to him, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase upcoming this season. Is that your answer too, or do you have anything else on Gesicki?
I would just say the Jalen Reagor thing. Like, I think I don't even think I retweeted whoever broke that story. Like, whatever. Like, whatever. Like, he's interesting because he still has a 1st-round attitude as a personality, but obviously he's not been a 1st-round performer since coming to the league. He showed some flashes. His kick return ability is great. Okay, not too many teams actually kick the ball off anymore. So once in a blue moon that happens, but it's a depth piece. Like you said, what was it, 400,000 guarantee, which is probably more than I thought. But again, that was one of those ones where I was just like, okay, if Jalen Rieger's playing a big role for you next year, either he's had the greatest breakout of his life, but more likely stuff's gone sideways for you.
Yeah, he had 7 catches last year in 11 games.
Yeah.
Like that's just what it is. My only concern with this, because we cannot, and I've been trying to do more of this, right? Like stay accountable to myself and the media as a whole, right? Talk out of our mouths one way, like, oh my God, $400,000 guarantee for Jalen Rieger, my stars. And then on the other side being like, why aren't you spending more? Yada, yada, yada. And like you can spend more wisely than probably giving Jalen Rieger money that might keep him on the roster, even if he's the 54th or 55th guy come cutdown day. But we can't get upset about it if everyone's been crying for spend more ad guys. He's going to be a camp body. He's still got raw speed and talent that I wrote a story last year allowed him to simulate Tyreek Hill 1 week on the scout team, Stephon Diggs the next. And it wasn't just, oh, hey, he did this because you're on scout team. You probably stink. It was the defenders telling me, which led me to write the story and talk to him about he was killing it last week. Like that. You want to know how he beat the Bills, did a good job on Diggs? Go ask him. So anyway, I don't think they're getting it out of him, but that's it. So nothing on Gesicki?
I mean, it just wasn't a fit. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of the signing at the time because I knew that he, again, and Belichick at one point referred to him as a receiver. Like he's not a tight end, but yet there was a stretch there early in the year where he was at the point of attack trying to block. And it was just like, that's just not who he is. I don't, like, I understand, like, you can't just put him out there because you're declaring what we're doing. But at the same time, like, just not a good use of his skill set. It just never meshed. And look, the whole offense never meshed. So, it's top down.
We're moving on, Mike. We're looking ahead. It's a new era in New England. I don't know if you've heard. But speaking of looking ahead, what comes next? People will probably listen to this Wednesday morning. And I have a column coming out in the Herald tomorrow where the start of it is the terrible plight of writing for a newspaper in 2024. You read it. I don't even have to tell you, but I'm going to tell listeners. Saying,
it's awful. Poor Andrew.
I can write about Calvin Ridley.
The world's tiniest violin. I'm playing for you right now.
Yes, totally fair. All very fair. And look, something could happen overnight, right? And basically by the time that people listen to this or read that column in the morning, it might be moot. Something I tried to acknowledge at the end. Here's another notification. And Mike Reese is just catching us up on the contract for Josh Uche, which you talked about. Sorry, Mike. Love you. What's coming next? What can people listen to Wednesday afternoon and look for or watch for you think is going to happen sometime in the next 24, 48 hours?
Well, so I think Ridley's going to stay with Jacksonville. And so then you've got to move your attention to how do we improve that room with some higher end talent. You mentioned Doug's story. We talked about Mike Williams in particular. Like that's something you have to kick. It was interesting to me. I think you and I were texting maybe yesterday or 2 days ago because we knew Deontay Johnson was available. And
I would never text you.
Right. I probably texted you first. Right. And then you probably made me wait to return the text. And like, did I piss Callahan off? I was surprised at how little he went for. I mean, it was a salary dump, basically. It was him for Dante Jackson and then like late round picks. Like if I'm not going to get Ridley, I'd have taken a 1-year flyer on Deontay Johnson. Again, he immediately becomes your best receiver. Like, and he's got some attitude stuff and like whatever. He speaks his mind freely, and sometimes that doesn't go great. But like, same thing. Like you're in this position where Jerry Jeudy, who I don't love, but he went for nothing, a 5th and a 6th, right, to Cleveland. And then this, like, you kind of wonder, like, okay, like you're starting to really narrow your scope here of guys that might be available that help change the room before the draft. And then I would say the other thing is obviously tackle. We're still waiting. Are they? We know they're in on some of the left tackle pieces, but like, why would Tyron Smith come here? Like, again, you're going to have to throw the bag at him. Jonah Williams is a contract that you'll probably give out. And then 2 years from now, you'll be like, I don't know. But again, you got to have someone there who's capable of doing it. He's done it before and he's decent. Like he's not great, but he's solid, I guess. And I think they've got to figure that out because at some point you're going to run that rookie quarterback out there, whether it's week 1 or week 8 or week 15. it's coming, and you want to make sure that that guy is as comfortable as he can be back there and is protected by pros and not by, the Vidarian low types like they had to do last year.
So a couple things to wrap up, and then I lied. We have the Mac Jones conversation I want to have right here at the very end. Chukwuemeka Okorafor, I did not touch on last episode either. 1 year, $4 million, got an A+ grade from Pro Football Focus as far as their free agency contract grades. And look, Brad Spielberger does an amazing job over there. So I would co-sign on basically anything he wants to put out there. Great guy, excellent at what he does. Has agents who work with him on their contracts before they go and deal with front offices. A+ is strong for me. I think the Steelers would love to keep around a tackle. Now they drafted one, Broderick Jones, who replaced him. I just don't have high hopes in the way that the Patriots supposedly do. According to Doug Hyde, they think he could play left tackle, something he's only really done in the preseason.
Let's pump the brakes. I mean, I understand he's going to report what they tell him. It's fair. He's, there's some dabbling over there.
And they believe the Patriots have believed some really weird shit about the process. Years. If we're being honest, City Sal right tackle first time in 2018. Who could have seen it coming?
Hey, let's sign Riley Reif, who's been on 3 of the worst offensive lines 3 years in a row and has had a hard time staying healthy. Let's sign Riley Reif and think that he's going to be the right tackle.
Right. Okay. The reason I brought this up is just to say, I might, and it sounds like you are, more inclined to say, take a peek at Jonah Williams, Kai Becton, 1 year flyer, and say, okay, we can roll into next season, one of them at left tackle, Michael one at right tackle, and we'll draft a guy and he'll develop and we'll go. The way the market's going, and from what I understand, Patriots still might do that, but I think they also, based on how they feel about Okorafor, could be comfortable with him competing with the tackle that they get high in the draft and trying to roll with that. There's a lot of money to spend, a lot of time to go, but they're higher on him than I am, and that's the reason I bring up the contract, which is fine. But
can I just counter that? Just in terms of if you stay at 3 and you draft a quarterback, which again, I think we all believe that's what they want to do if they find comfort in Drake May's the guy or Jaden Daniels is the guy and he's going to be there. And we believe he's going to be the franchise quarterback. So now you're picking at 34. It's going to be some good receivers sitting there at 34. It's going to be 1 or 2 tackles that are on the fringe of first round, early second. Where are you going? Because then your next pick isn't until 68. Are you trying to trade back up into the second round and pluck a receiver at 50 and work that magic? Or because your drafting has been so poor and your talent base is so poor that 3, 34, and 68 are maybe virtually untouchable, not wanting to move too much from that because we gotta start hitting these things. We gotta have some cost control. We gotta develop our own guys. I think it's an interesting spot to be at 34 because I've kind of gone through the exercise. I love to do the mock drafts. I do 1 a day or 2 a day and just kind of play around with it. And obviously whatever, they're just simulations and who knows what everyone's thinking, but you're trying to base it on this is what I'm hearing. This is what these teams need. All right, now we're going to the free agency. Oh, they signed this guy. So maybe this position no longer is a first or second round need. Maybe they look at it date, third round or beyond. And I just wonder if you're sitting there at 34, tackle or wide receiver, you're trying to weaponize the offense and you might have had a hard time in doing it in free agency or in the trade market. It feels like wide receiver speaks more than tackle does, but I don't know. We'll see. That'll be an interesting play if they don't land or if they don't hit big.
I'm with you. And right now, as the experts draft boards fall, the first round tackles start day 1 kind of guys end at 20 to 25. So you can't even really wait till 34 to go take a guy. The receivers are still anywhere from 9 to 11, maybe 12 in the top 50 of the draft. Again, that's not 68 where they would pick in the third round. I'm just trying to say, I think the Patriots like the Okorafor more than you do, more than I do, and more than fans do at home. Will they sign another tackle? I hope so. They very well could. I'm just bracing for the possibility. More reporting coming in here, just contract details. Jacoby Brissett, 1 year, $8 million contract, includes $6.5 million guaranteed, according to Doug Hyde, $5 million signing bonus, and then his base salary, minimum $1.5 million, also fully guaranteed. So a good deal for him, regardless of whether he starts or not. He's getting paid. Signing bonus, note too, I think folks hear that and think, okay, here's just immediately all this cash up front. The Patriots are a little bit different in that they get paid this signing bonus in 3 installments throughout the year. Just a little something for you there. And the other thing was people are going to go, Brandon Ayuk, why even mention him? They could trade for him. What about T. Higgins? I think the Bengals are telling you to kick rocks when it comes to T. Higgins. This is why the franchise tag exists. He is now at market value or below when we pay him this amount of money, pending whatever Calvin Ridley gets. And so he's staying. Ayuk will have a ton of suitors. He's going into his age 26 season. The Niners might even keep him. We'll see. I think the Patriots certainly made a call, but that's why we didn't spend as much time on those two as much as Keenan Allen or Mike Williams.
Yeah, and those, again, from just what we were talking about, drafting and developing and sort of having this base, like, so you're trading. I mean, I think both of those teams are right to ask for a first-round pick, understanding it'll be late first round. So in order for you to do that, you're either going to have to trade up and get a pick in the late first round, so you're moving picks, or you're trying to convince them, well, we'll give you we have a high second, and we'll maybe a fourth next year. You're trying, whatever, you're playing around with it. And I just think, and then you got to turn around and pay them. And again, they've got the money, they can do that, but that's not as clean as they want it to be, as it could be. And again, I don't know that T. Higgins is the number one. I mean, he's, again, way better than anything you got. But now you're talking about giving up picks and then paying him the money. I'd rather I'll just throw a few more $1 million at Calvin Ridley. Come on, Calvin.
Take him to the club. Is that what you're doing?
Just whatever, man.
That was the flattest rain that ever fell, just straight off of your hands. Okay, let's end on someone who will be a Jacksonville Jaguar because he got traded there over the weekend. Mac Jones, 6th-round pick. I had reported for weeks the expectation was in the neighborhood of a 5th, and obviously it was not. There's some reporting that says Jacksonville made the only offer. There were 4 teams involved, and look, I don't want to spend any more time retracing how bad it was the last couple of years. Whose fault was it, Bill or Mac? We did all of that. We talked about it. I wrote the stories. You wrote the stories. It sucked. I'm sorry it ended that poorly for all involved, frankly. And that he lost the locker room, which is the thing that happened, and then sat for the last 6 games of the season. Watch Bailey Zappi, who liked the post of NFL.com on Instagram, just NFL, I suppose, sharing that Mac Jones has been traded. Not a great look.
That's a bruh, if there ever was one. Dude, come on, man.
Yes. So what hasn't been said? Like, we're at the end. The book is closed. The ink is dry. But when a guy who 2 years ago was a supposed emerging franchise quarterback gets traded in what's one of the steepest falls for an athlete in Boston pro sports history, underlined history, what should be said at the end here, even if it's a little bit of a retread?
Yeah, to me, honestly, I just think I'm looking forward from it. And I think it's, what lessons did you learn from what happened with Mac Jones, and how do you make sure that doesn't happen again? And I also think Brandon Beane said something. He was asked about, I think it was at the Combine, he was asked about the acquisition of Josh Allen and all that went into it, the trading up and how they did the various things and how they had targeted him. And he mentioned like a fit for the climate, a fit for the environment you're going to have to play in, Buffalo, the fan base, the weather conditions. And I think there's something, it's not Buffalo, but there is some similar things here. And I tried to convince myself that, especially after that first year, that he could win from the pocket, even though his arm was lukewarm. And I think one of the lessons I learned from that is, like, I don't think he can do that anymore. And I think the league is trended in such a direction that you need someone who can make plays off schedule. You don't want to make a living out of it, but you want to be able to do it. And he had better feet than people think he did, but it's still not that kind of guy. And I think, to me, that's like, when you're looking at this next guy, I hear people talk about like, well, no, draft Harrison or trade down and pick Penix or Nix. I'm like, there's an athletic ceiling to those guys that the guys at the top of the draft don't have. And I'm going to bet on those traits and then trust that the coaches that I put in place can develop that guy into the guy that I need him to be, the franchise guy, the guy that I need to go through Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow. Like, they're all premier players, and you got to figure out a way to get through them. And you're going to have to do it in part with a really good quarterback. And you got to aim higher than the profile that Mac Jones had.
I agree. I think the lessons in the value and what happened, which is true in a lot of cases, football, life, or otherwise, is how you can apply it to the future. Those lessons. What can you do to fertilize the future from every the pain of the past, right? And so for Mac Jones, he's going to go to Jacksonville. Probably will conduct himself a little bit differently. I think he'll get back to Alabama Mac, as he told Burt Breer at training camp. Loose, fun. I hope he does and enjoy life a little bit more closer to home. For the Patriots, you need to support that quarterback in a way that they did not. And this, again, is not absolving Mac of all blame or the interceptions or the pouting or the exchanges or losing the locker room and the coaching staff and all that. It's just to say that if you want to win with a young quarterback, especially on a cheap contract, spend more money on weapons, give him an excellent offensive line, and if you need to make staff changes, don't hire Matt Patricia. Okay? Life got harder for Mac Jones from year 1 to year 2. He was expected, Bill praised him, to make this giant year 2 leap. And all of the receivers played worse. Not totally within Bill's control, even. Kendrick Bourne putting on a little bit of weight that he shouldn't have. Not great in 2022. But they did not support him then. They did not support him in 2023 as well as they could have. You have the benefit of that extra money, that extra cap room to use. Use it. Make it friendly. And I know Elliott's given a voice to that. And on the market point, I think it's a great one because not only will Jaden Daniels or Drake May bring some of that extension, that creativity, right? Like you name all the best quarterbacks, they all do it. They also win from the pocket. We will never get away from this in the NFL. You have to win and throw from the pocket. But if you can extend, you need to be in such a circumstance that you are surrounded by T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and a great offensive line as Joe Burrow is, or you need to create. But I think with May and with Daniels, there's this great line in It's Better to Be Feared, Seth Wickersham's book in the Dynasty that should have had a documentary made about it. And it's supposedly Belichick telling Bill O'Brien or people around him, they're going to reject you like a bad transplant because you're just not from Texas. You don't wear a cowboy hat. You don't wear cowboy boots. And so it's not that Mac Jones couldn't have won in New England, but from a personality standpoint and from a physical standpoint, like I look at someone like Drake May as someone who might need a little bit more time and development, but could really be a better fit on those fronts than Mac was, which is something I would have dismissed back then, showing you his rookie tape and this is all the evidence you need. He can win. He can do it here. The guy needs better arm strength, a little bit more moxie, can stand up to that kind of pressure, which whether it was real pressure in his face in the fourth quarter in Germany against the Colts or pressure from the media altogether, or even from Bill Belichick, broke Mac Jones in the end. And none of it was necessary.
Yeah, again, we've traced it a million times, but there's so many different missteps made by the organization from top to bottom. Bill, the way Bill coached him, the way Joe Judge, Patricia coached him.
And Mac threw picks.
Yeah.
And took
100%. I've said it a million times to people that want to they screwed this up. I'm like, yeah, they did, but he screwed it up too. You can't. Yeah. they're all part of it, for their own reasons and how it happened. But yeah, they have to. And we spent this time talking about Ridley and these weapons. Like that's the point. Get a tackle that you feel comfortable with. Now, all of a sudden, you got 5 guys that you trust up front. They may not be the best offensive line, but are they working cohesively? Are they protecting your quarterback more often than not? Yes. Okay, good. Now get him someone who gets open in a phone booth like that. Oh, get him a guy that he can throw to that he trusts. Like, look at the Mac thing. Like, we made a ton of talk about the Jacoby Myers thing, and there was a lot of pushback initially because people looked at Juju and they like Juju's numbers better and, the yards after catch and all this different thing. Letting Jacoby go killed part of Mac's spirit. That was his guy. That was a guy who defended him publicly, even willing to take on the fans as he did in 2022 after the Bears game, like incredulous that they booed him and were chanting for Zappy, and just someone that he relied on. Look, if I can buy like a half more second, I trust him. He's going to get open. Now he may fall down after he catches it or may get brought down easily, but he's going to catch it. And for $1 extra million, as Jacoby said, 1 million was the difference. You find the million because that's your quarterback. You're trying to if he's your franchise quarterback, you do everything you can to support your franchise quarterback. You find the extra million, man. That's what you got to do. They didn't do it.
Here we are. Full circle, open on Calvin Ridley, and it probably taking a little bit extra money. Me explaining why they might not do that. But look, sometimes the case is that simple for Y2, and you just made it, and I think it's compelling. And we'll see what happens, whether it's Calvin Ridley or it's Mike Williams or somebody else that comes to New England, they know at least they need to invest that position. They're willing to do it. Again, Mike Evans was a big, real offer that they were preparing, gearing up to make. It didn't happen. Doesn't matter. But that is a data point that we can keep in the back of our minds if they fail with Calvin Ridley. It's not for lack of understanding about the market or the value of the position or supporting the quarterback. They're just going to have to do it a different way. All right, it is late. Need sleep. I need sleep. I need to go through these more notifications that are popping up on my phone, which do not include Patriots news, thank God. Mike Reese, Doug Hyde, just two of the best. All right, you got to go. Thank you very much for popping on. Of course, I'm going to bug you close to the draft. Good luck with your one mock draft a day diet. That would drive me insane, but I think you're probably going to be ahead of the curve here on me for the next couple of weeks. But I'm gonna catch you. Okay, I'm gonna be like Jaden Daniels, getting Drake May somehow from like spot number 10 in the mocks in December, January, and now I'm ahead of you. I'm gonna be number 2 to your number 3 in like early April.
We'll see. I got a lot of time on my hands.
See you, pal.
See ya.